Hi, good morning. Welcome to Life Integrated Therapies. Today, we have a very special guest for you. We have Teya. Teya is a psychic seer and a shamanic healer, a world-renowned psychic. She has been doing this work for over 30 years. She has taught countless people, including myself. I have done courses with her. I did the shaman doorway courses with her, which were incredible. I'm trying to convince her to come to Dubai again and do the courses again. So let's see. Hopefully, if you're interested in joining the course, please do make contact her or myself. And we're trying to organize by year end that she can come to Dubai and do the courses. So if you're interested in that, do reach out to us. Um, she teaches psychic development, ancestral healing, animal communication, and she also does one-on-one healings and lots of other things, actually. You can go on her website, which I'll post in the description. Go check out what she does, and if you're interested, do reach out. So welcome, Teya. Welcome.
Thank you, darling. It's lovely to be here with you.
Thank you.
hmm
So, yeah, can you maybe just like talk about like what is a shamanic healer? What is, psychic seer? What kind of work do you do? What are you passionate about? And how you got into this kind of work as well. It's been 30 years now, so
Okay.
your journey, like, yeah.
I grew up in South Africa. I was born in Zimbabwe, and really I was exposed to a lot of the indigenous medicine of we call them the Sangomas, which are the indigenous medicine men and women who work and live in a very grounded, integrated medicine way in South Africa. And really, it was my fascination with the nature and communicating with animals and understanding the messages of the weather systems. That was my inroads into being extremely receptive, I would say, to this way of working. The word shamanism is quite a taboo word because a lot of people maybe conflate it with Native American Indian wisdom or even Aboriginal, but really it's an umbrella term for the indigenous wisdom, the nature based earth,
Oh,
mother, father, sky connection to every culture on the planet. Another reason I was always very drawn to it is because I also came from a very I would say quite troubled, traumatic, religiously charged fundamentalist background. And I naturally sought a lot of healing and answers. And I felt the most safety working with the nature spirits and being with the animals, being with the indigenous people of the land. They seem to be much more heart based and they really welcomed me in. And with that, I was also always just naturally very psychically open. I think probably due to my heritage through my family, I've had a lot of um, sensitive, let's say, ancestors, psychically sensitive. But I think trauma also has a part in opening people up. There's a medicine in trauma. It creates this great big sort of opening in a person's auric field, and it really, what's the best way I can describe it? It puts a fire up your ass to reach out for healing. And it really does sensitize you, and it gives you sort of these amazing pattern recognition skills. It gives you this hypervigilance, which is a way of accessing our psychic abilities. So all of these things really compounded to catapult me onto a healing path, both healing my own traumas and grief, recovering from a lot of, I would say, deaths in my early childhood. I witnessed a lot of death, quite traumatic death in my circle. So I was always that person that would somehow just always be witness to someone who was dying, or just be that person who was called to somehow hold someone's hand. as they were passing.
Mm.
So, with that, as well as my inherent psychic ability, I also, from a very early age, I had a very strong connection to spirits. And I actually didn't know the difference between dead and alive people until I was about 8 or 9, because I actually saw spirits all around me all the time. And didn't, yeah, I actually thought that I was a little bit crazy. A lot of people responded to me like I was a little bit crazy, and I started thinking I was crazy. But it was only when I started working with the indigenous medicine men and women, and they were letting me know, Teya, you're not crazy. You've got this gift, and you need to learn how to ground it now. You need to learn how to work with it in a conscious way.
How old were
So
you when you could see like into the energy world and like but was it from the beginning or
I
was it
can't remember a time where I haven't seen into the spirit world, as it were.
mm,
I was also a very devoted Christian as a child. I was that little girl that was writing Jesus' birthday cards on Christmas and
uh
really wanted to be a nun and really wanted to come closer to God. And it was also my experience of being around and amongst very fundamentalist, very critical, quite dogmatic Christians that kind of put the fear of God in me, and it was the fear bit that I just couldn't resonate with. It was the fear bit that I really couldn't vibe with, and so I sort of went far away from the religion of Christianity. But actually, bizarrely, through my medicine walk, I would say, through my journey of connecting with elemental wisdom, earth, air, fire, water, spirit wisdom, animal wisdom, it's brought me back full circle to an even deeper relationship with God. And I would say Christ consciousness, not Jesus the man, but Christ consciousness,
I can really
which,
resonate with that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
which for me is really, it's an innocent, heart-based way of being and meeting life and meeting ourselves.
Mm,
It's really born of love, and that is really in alignment with, the heartbeats of the Pachamama, the heartbeats of the animals, the heartbeats of the children. It's really innocent.
mm,
Um, yeah, so it's kind of bizarre how something that might have been viewed as, or has been viewed as, or judged as a cult, or sort of veering away from Christ-like or religious morality, it's actually brought me so much deeper
yeah.
into connection with it, but in a way that I can't sit in judgment of another culture. I can't sit in judgment of another religion. I can't be in the heart and sit with this frequency of judgment. It's just, and I'm sure, if Jesus was sitting next to me, he'd be going, absolutely, that's exactly what I was trying to show in my earth walk, so yeah, that's kind of a nutshell of how I came into it. In terms of what it is, it's it's really just a way of waking up our earth, air, fire, water intelligence. We are all fashioned of earth, air, fire, water.
Mm-hmm.
And, it really is about, returning whatever is moving through our psyches at any given time, whether it's pain, whether it's, thoughts, whether it's fear, whatever it is. Can we offer it to the innocence of our breath? Can we offer it to the fires of our heartbeat? Can we offer it to the intelligence of our lymphatic systems, the waters of us, the emotional system? Can we give it to the clay of us, the body of us, to compost for us? When we return everything to that elemental innocence, it just naturally transforms it. And yeah, go on.
No, I was just saying that it's
Mm-hmm.
so like relevant to today, for example, like,
Mm-hmm.
we're living in times of so much uncertainty and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are very afraid and the fear is there. Not only the fear of what's happening around us in the world, but also, the fear of like what we think and what we like. There's a lot of fear right now, I feel.
Mhm.
Even, what we believe, what we think, what we're allowed to think, what we're allowed to say, like, is it politically correct? Is it not? There's a lot of yeah, like a feeling of not being free,
Mhm.
So I feel like yeah, that like what you're talking about, like that journey, what you came out of, I feel it's very potent now in the world that we live in, like a lot of
Mhm.
people are going through that right now. I don't know if that makes
Absolutely. And I think that, really there is so much fear. There's so much. I'm going to call it what it is. There's this, kind of catchword, the Antichrist, Jesus is coming back, or the Antichrist is here.
mm,
And really it's all a big frequency. Anything that is taking us away from that absolute living embodiment, that connection to our hearts, the connection to our heartbeats, the connection to our breath, the connection to what's moving in the body, the connection to what's moving in the emotions. Energy is supposed to be
yeah,
in motion, otherwise it's stuck. And anything that serves to create fear, to take us out of this living embodiment, anything that takes us into that energy of, oh my God, what's going to happen in the future? And oh my God, what can I and can I not say?
yeah.
And,
And what can and I cannot not feel as well,
what
like,
can I and can I not feel?
yeah,
We are self-censoring left, right, and center. And just circling back, anything that is, I don't want to call AI antichrist at all, because it's a tool, it's like currency, right? But anything that is in a way dissociating that human embodied awareness of love and movement and feeling and breath is the antichrist. It's a frequency. And so I don't see it as one little guy with red horns that's going to turn up in some temple in Babylon somewhere. We're in a time of revelations. Everything's coming to light.
right,
And we're in a time where, this is a spiritual warfare. We're not, yes, there are these big wars that are happening, but as above, so below, as within and so
right.
without.
Exactly. This is what I was
Yeah.
trying to say, that it's I'm feeling it on an individual level in my
Mm-hmm.
personal life, and I'm also feeling it on a collective level, like around me. Like, okay, there's the war, there's all of those fears that are there, but also like within me as well, like what am I supposed to be feeling here? Like uh
Good
yeah.
question. Pause there, Nissa. What am I supposed to be feeling? Exactly what you're
Mm,
feeling. And
mm,
it's like, it's the question is, okay, so how does fear move? How does fear breathe? How does fear want to express itself? Okay, so we might not be able to talk about this non-PC thing or that PC thing. And so what do we do with the energy? One
mm-hmm,
of my teachers asked me, Teya, or he asked us as a group, do you know the difference between a shaman and a psychotic person?
mm-hmm.
And, we all thought about it for a minute. We didn't really know how to answer, but actually, he said, like, there's actually very little difference. There's only one difference, because the shaman and the psychotic person, they've both got the same information that's flooding their psyches at any given moment. We've got the same amount of information that's arising from within, that's arising from all around us, competing for our consciousness at any given point. But the
Mm,
shaman is simply directional and intentional with what is coming into their awareness, right? So they are taking that and going, okay, this is a storm coming through me right now. So how am I going to take that energy? How am I going to move it? How am I going to transform it? How am I going to direct it in a way that is going to be not just really serving of self, but serving of the whole hoop, right? With this awareness that every one of us is a bead on the sacred necklace of life.
mm-hmm,
Every single one of us in this big, beautiful ecology of life is sacred, right? So it's really important that we're not just moving from a place of being invisible to self and denying our egos and denying our needs and and nor is it important to come from a place where we're just ignoring what's happening on the outside of us and trying to tune out to all the madness. How
Mm-hmm.
can we stay really open to what's happening within ourselves and open to the collective? How can we foster a more interdependent relationship, one that's not completely codependent and overwhelmed and enmeshed in it, and one that's not super independent and detached and isolated from it, right? And so it's a big question, and it's hard to kind of put a linear voice to what is essentially a quantum experience or an emotional or non-linear experience. But the key is, it's like, back to your question, what do I do with all this feeling? What do I do with all of this that wants to express itself in me? And, often we're met with, oh my gosh, there's a little internal judge and jury and perhaps an executioner at dawn that we've all internalized in one ideology or, yeah, just some kind of morality or another. Um,
Yeah, just questioning my whole belief systems, It's
yeah,
like, what am I supposed to believe now? Like what
good
is true?
question.
Yeah.
Good question. So, and I would say to you, okay, so there's all of that's there.
Mm.
But, from here down, there's about 10,000 miles of unexplored territory. It's like a jungle. So I'm going to ask you, so how does your body respond to all of this? Not only all of this unpalatable, undigestible stuff that's happening on the outside that would have us all totally frozen in fear and stuck in analysis paralysis,
Mm.
but how does the body respond? Does she want to scream? Does she want to jump up and down and shake out? Does she want to dance? Does she want to go for a run? Does she want to eat? What does she want to do? What does the wisdom of your body say to you right now? The thing is, we've got to remember that, we are all being socially engineered to be, on one level or another, kind of afraid, because when we're afraid,
Mm.
it's, then what follows is that we work, we obey, we consume, and then we be silent. Okay. And that is brilliant because that makes us very governable. And I'm not saying to go and be kind of conscious rebels, but the powers that would love to be, um, don't want ungovernable people. It's very difficult to govern a lion. I mean, there's a lot of people that would disagree with that, but if you want a lion not to be like a shadow of himself,
Mm.
um, and some sort of bitch slapped animal that's really, by all means and purposes, lost its lionhood, right? That lion needs to roar. It needs to be free to express itself. And a lion in its true essence is very mindful of protecting its whole pride. It's very mindful of not taking or giving more than is necessary. It's always moving from a sense of the pride of a lion rather than the pride of self or the pride of ego.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, if there is a threat to that lion, it's probably going to freeze for a moment and assess the situation, and it's going to stay stuck in that sense of freeze. But when the threat's over, and if it's lucky enough to kind of survive that threat, what does the lion do? It lets out a big burst of energy.
Mm.
It shakes it out, and it doesn't hold the trauma or the fear in this pathological way. Pathology is our relationship to whatever is moving or not moving on the inside. Animals are quite simple because they don't have this pathology that we humans do.
Yeah.
This is a way that, in a way that they don't suffer quite as much as we do.
Mm-hmm. They feel it, they let it go, and then they move on and then forget about it.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
feel pain, excruciating pain, like we do. But there's nothing in their egos that are saying, you know what, I shouldn't be feeling this. I would rather be doing something else.
Mm.
They just are a state of okayness, having an experience of pain. And
Mm.
so because they're not attaching to it in a mental or a linear way, they're moving it through the body, through their own earth, air, fire, water intelligence, and then they just keep it moving.
Dale, what about the,
Mm-hmm.
like, that little dog in Japan that when the owner died was going back to the thing. So they also have like feelings of loyalty and they don't, and don't they also hold feelings like that?
Absolutely. Like I said, they experience pain, excruciating pain, but not in a way of like, you're not
Suppressing
going to
it.
see that little dog saying, okay, I shouldn't be going and expressing my love and loyalty to my owner or the one that's just passed. I should be wearing black and I should be depressed because it's PC. And, it wasn't doing that. It was just moving straight from the heart and doing what it needed to do. How many of us, if we really gave ourselves permission when we lost a loved one, would be howling our grief, would be going
Yeah.
backwards and forwards to the burial sites, would be really moving with all the phases of grief as a beautiful thing, as waves, many many waves in a big old ocean of emotion, um, you know as an elemental releasing process, whereas we get frozen in all of these emotions because it's not cool or it's not PC to express them. And I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, when anything is stuck or frozen, it's very difficult to access that higher corpus callosum, that higher critical thinking, our higher intuitive capabilities.
Mm.
Because we go into a survival mode. We go into this fight, we go into fright, we go into flight, we want to fly away, and we also go into fawning, right? Fawning is a very understudied fear response as well, where we go into executive people pleasing. It's another survival strategy. And, and it's all coming from this total place of just hypervigilance and survival, right? And this is quite a dangerous place. And a lot of us don't recognize these strategies that we're moving from. This is actually the thing that we've got to fear the most, is actual fear and how it's moving or expressing itself. And what is the opposite of fear? It's breath, it's preparedness, it's movement, it's being able to meet fluid with fluidity, whatever obstacles are coming, whether they're arising as thoughts or threats or actual tsunamis or bombs or whatever it is. If we're in that ability to move and meet it with that brave heart energy,
Mm.
um, we up our chances anyway, certainly on a flat earth survival level. But that's where we cross over also into, the strong hearts, even on a soul level. Because remember, as above, so below. From the soul perspective, there is no death. Um, a lot of people are in fear because they're afraid of what? They're afraid of dying. They're afraid of their loved ones dying at the moment. And, everyone is really meeting our sense of mortality in a more profound, more conscious way than kind of
Yeah.
ever before on a collective level
I
right
feel there's
now.
also like a fear of uncertainty, like what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, oh, excuse me, got something in my eye. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge uncertainty. So it's like, okay, are we going to stay really distracted? Are we going to stay glued to our screens? We're going to keep doom scrolling? Are we going to
Yeah.
are
It's
we
an
going to
energy that we're sucked into, right? It's like
exactly.
fear is
And one of
also
the first things that disappear when we're in fear is
whirlwind.
our commitment to our joy.
Mm.
It's our commitment to are you okay there, my love, with your
Yeah,
eye?
sorry, yeah.
Yeah. It's our commitment to, feeding the whole mandala of what brings us a sense of balance and connectedness as people on a
Yeah.
daily basis.
Yeah. So how to
Yeah,
navigate through this then? Is there a way? Okay, of course there's the elements. I feel like being out in nature really helps, and I guess that's again our nervous system syncing with the frequency of nature, bringing us back, grounding
absolutely.
us. But like, how would you
So
advise
there's more
people
than
to?
one way up a mountain, obviously.
Yeah,
And, so I would say there's literally no one size band-aid that fits all. What helps me every single day is, again, really connecting to nature. And if I can't go out into nature, I make sure my home is full of nature, aliveness. I awaken my olfactory senses by bringing beautiful herbs, beautiful flowers just this last week, I've been harvesting a lot of roses from my garden, making lovely medicines and, bath bombs and beauty things and spritzers, and just the frequency of flowers. If you even think about the flowers, they have all the same sacred geometry as the stars,
Oh,
certainly
wow.
according to the Hopi Indians. So they have a really high frequency. This is why they've been used traditionally in every kind of ceremony, blessing ceremony, grief ceremony, weddings, everything. They've always got such a special place. So connecting with that beautiful flower energy is just, for me, it's really beautiful. Also, opening up to lovely sounds that are not just, the constant hum of the radio or the, YouTube with all the podcasts and the this and that's very easy to get pulled out with that. But I think it's so important to either just listen to the sounds of the birds, the sounds of the wind, just the sound of silence, the sound of our own breathing, just to slow down the heartbeat and just have a moment every day of where we can just consciously call all of our energies back into alignment, into the body. So important,
Mm.
because we're so out there, and back there, and we're extended in all directions of space and time. And to the body intelligence, the body of us is the very innocent, sophisticated animal that experiences that as an abandonment. And then that animal of our bodies tries to say, hey, come back, something's not right. And then it tries to give you a signal that it's feeling abandoned. So it will give you a feeling of anxiety, or just something's not quite right, or a digestive issue, or an itch, or a scratch, or a something, right?
That's
And
interesting. Like,
because we haven't understood the vocabulary or the languages of our bodies, like there's a disconnect in a lot of cases. We then pathologize that and we think, oh my gosh, I need to do a Prozac, or I need to dissociate further from that feeling, or I need to, or
oh,
something's wrong with me. And we pathologize ourselves. And actually, it's not. Sometimes we just need to take a moment, take some breaths, come back and go, okay, gosh, yes, my heart is beating fast right now. And I am feeling sad and overwhelmed. And I am feeling longing for more connection with my tribe or my significant other, or just even my own body or the earth or my animals or my family or whatever it is,
mm.
and just connect. The opposite of connection is addiction. And a lot of people don't know that. And we're all bloody addicts, right? Every single one of us, right? It goes right the way back to the creation story, the original separation from God. It's the original wound that every single one of us carry. It's
Wow.
the wound of separation. And what is that if you break it down to its energetics? It's a wound of disconnection. It's nature that has had, through some form of disconnect, through disconnection to the body, disconnection to our own religious beliefs, disconnection to our homelands, disconnection to our families, disconnection to our way of being, whatever it is. We've been disconnected at so many levels. They call it the kanyini in the Aboriginal culture. The whole soul is the kanyini. And, if you want to systematically disconnect a person from their integrity, is you take away their connections to all these aspects, these vital points of connection. And what are you left with? You're left with a big vacuum. And nature doesn't like a vacuum. Of course, you can't just leave a hole in nature without something is going to come and fill it,
Yeah,
right?
the
And
voids that
it's
we
a void,
experience.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we fill it with what? Like substances or overwork or
Oh,
relationships
wow.
or
Yeah.
whatever, or even the spirit of dis-ease. Something has to come and fill that gap, right? So it's like, how do we navigate this? Well, like, what? How can we sit with these experiences, and every single one of us has it, in one dimension or another of our reality, and how can we sit and go, okay, here's the void. Where is it feeling? Where does this void reside in my body right now? Am I even enough in my body to experience it? Am I so out of my body that I'm out there? I can't even feel my body right now. That's another experience of the void.
Like the
Is this
numbness in your.
conversation really triggering for me right now? I'd rather be going and having I'd rather get a takeaway. I'd rather just pick up my phone and check who's maybe going to message me in a minute on WhatsApp. And actually, hey, that's a void. It's like you're looking for someone or something to come and fill that space. And I would say, how do we navigate that? It's like, wow, breathe. Let's breathe. Let's consciously call our spirits, our Mother, Father, God, natures back into our bodies. Let's call that unification of our mental awareness back into our bodies. Let's call our hearts back into our bodies.
Even if it's
Right?
painful, we just call it back.
Even though it's painful, and we give it breath. We give it breath. We give it, presence and awareness, because, the beauty of it is just as soon as we feel a sense of like overwhelm, but we meet it with presence, and we don't try to move to distract or avoid or dissociate or judge, because the energy of the judge immediately separates us. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually known in many cultures, in many indigenous cultures, as the parasite, the spirit of the parasite on the medicine wheel, the spirit of the judge, right? Because it separates us from the all. It separates us from God. It's, and from ourselves. And so when we actually do the opposite, okay, here I am and I'm judging myself. Okay, so I'm going to consciously choose to love that part of me that has become so crystallized and so frozen in judgment. And I'm going to bring some breath to that right now. And I'm just going to let that soften. And then something else gives rise. Something else is born in that space when I meet it with that energy of presence, rather than more judgment, more avoidance, more pain, more, that's the point of suffering I was trying to say, where we bring our own suffering in a lot of ways.
It takes a lot of courage, I think, to go there and because these are like our shadow parts, right? These parts of us that we don't wanna see them, or we're suppressing them, or the void is there for a reason as well, like something that we that we jumped out of. Like
Yeah.
part of us jumped out and that space is now there. So
And when you break up the word courage, to be encouraged, we have to connect with our rage. And, we have to, we have to connect with that part of us that's fully emotive. And it's like any muscle, when we first try to kind of exercise it, it's weak. We don't know, we haven't got that wiring, right? None of us are taught emotional EQ in school. None of us. None of our parents were taught it, and their parents. We were taught, in fact, to fear our big emotions and to temper them and to
not to show our emotions. We were taught,
exactly
keep your emotions to yourself, smile, and sit in the corner and be quiet, and
yeah, exactly.
this is what we were
And
taught.
then and then there's the other flip side of that, where there's just completely dysregulated emotions, and people like going the opposite way, where they're
Rebel.
allowing their emotions to completely rule them. And I've been totally guilty of that, because I've also had so much emotional suppression. When I found that some tools or some ways of being in the new agey communities or various healing societies, they were like, yes, embrace your emotions. I took it to the nth degree, where I was like, feel my rage, and here's my grief. And like I went from silenced emotions to completely the opposite. And that wasn't it either. We do need to self-regulate. We absolutely do. But it's as it always brings back, I'm so circling back to the whole shamanic way of viewing this. And every one of us is a smoking mirror. We have a black smoking mirror, and it's our job, every one of us, to clear that black smoking mirror and to return to that innocence of the hollow bone or the hollow bamboo. And it doesn't come through trying to displace or dissociate those emotions, and neither does it come by holding on to those emotions and putting them on blast and somehow getting attached to those emotions. The whole point is how can we just allow those emotions to just move through us? But
Yeah.
it's not like I'm moving it through on a mental level. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm going to breathe in the thoughts on the wind of my breath, and I'm going to give it to the clarifying oxygen and the wind of me. And then I'm going to hold it in my heart and give it to the fire of my heartbeat, because that fire is going to transmute the energy of that. I'm
You
going to
know,
find my heartbeats of that. And then I'm going to give it to the waters of my body, my lymphatic system, the emotions of me. And I'm going to let the rivers flow where they need to flow. And I'm going to let it go even further down to the earth and the clay of my body to compost it, because that's what she does best. And it's not a mental thing. I'm choosing to direct and intend that all of that nonsense or pain or story or whatever it is, I'm going to give it to this incredibly sophisticated elementally cleansing system that I've been God given in my body, that is always in harmonic alignment with the earth and God. It's a mother, father, God. And I'm going to return all of that to innocence. And so many ways I can do that. I can go and get in a salt bath, and I can go and jump in the sea, or I can listen to some music and I can move it through, or I can wash it through, I can shake it through, I can just move it, put it through a round of that internal elemental washing machine. And that story somehow, after it's gone through the rinser like that, it takes on a different flavor.
you know,
Suddenly I'm meeting it with the wisdom of my heart, and
yeah.
not just some preconceived judgment or fear of my mind. Suddenly, something softened in me because I've allowed it to move through into the body intelligence. And the body knows how to respond. The body will say, well, no, you just need to digest this a bit more, or you actually need to go and blow it out, or you just need to let it go, or you need to take action on something,
You
you
know,
know.
the language also is a big part of it. Like in English, we say I am angry or I am upset or I am happy. So it becomes like an identification. Whereas in other languages, like in Dutch, you say I have the feeling of being angry. So it's like you allow the feeling to pass through you because it's not you that's the anger. You're feeling it. It's a feeling that's passing through you right now. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, and that's a really, really good point. We take on we identify with a lot of these feelings, and this is also where I find even though it's very useful to have labels and to kind of identify with certain things, I think they can become a trap as well. Like even in the whole psychiatric community, a lot of people will grab onto a label that I'm ADHD or I'm depressed or I'm bipolar, and that, again, while it's useful to, in a
categorize.
way, give a voice to a certain state of being, what it does is it traps a person in that state of being. By now I've probably received every possible label, but I've moved through all of them.
Mm.
And I keep coming back to the simple awareness of hollow bone. And from a shamanic perspective, we don't look at those labels as these frozen states of being. We see them as superpowers. We see them as really beautiful tools and resources. As an
Can you
example, go on.
explain the hollow bone? Because maybe some listeners won't know what that is. Like it's an
Well,
empty pipe, right? It's a
yeah. So, like, really, I mean, they give reference to this in the Taoist traditions. Where they sort of call it the hollow bamboo. It's very much about the fact that we are really just antennas, and we are just transmitters of light and consciousness, really. And our bodies are the temple that holds our spirits, but we get very attached to all these different stories and labels. And I would even say, kind of, we house a lot of epigenetic or ancestral unhealed trauma. And a lot of that gets crystallized in the body. It gets crystallized at a mental level. It gets crystallized emotionally. And we don't realize that we are viewing ourselves and others through these very filtered lenses. And so, what is it to just actually question all these things that we just take for gospel? Question all these things, whether they're arising from the outside or they're indeed even arising from the inside, and put it through a round of that beautiful elemental intelligent rinser cycle, I would call it, and see what the actual truth of the body says, see what the actual truth of the heart says. Right? And the heart is where the spirit and the body shake hands. And that brings us full circle to that Christ consciousness again. You know, that is the quiet rebellion right now. Can we keep returning to the innocence and meeting all these things without judgment? And that doesn't mean they get to live rent free in us. Sometimes we have to find that fierceness of that animal instinctive intelligence to say, no, you no longer have power over me, or you no longer have a place in my mind rent free. You're no longer, I'm not going to keep allowing the spirit of judgment to keep dictating my every thought, my every move, my every feeling. I'm not going to accept that, right? But I'm equally not going to judge all of those who are judging me or possibly judge me, because that's still kind of meeting it at the same level of freeze and judgment. I'm going to just keep moving it. I'm going to keep moving it. And I know it sounds so simple, and like in practice, it seems a lot harder than it is, but that's because we make things so complicated in the mind. So coming back full circle to what you were asking, how do we navigate? You know, what the most important thing is to give breath and to give movement and to just keep moving and to understand that we are not stuck and that change is possible and that we are not all destined for one timeline. You know, there are multiple timelines that are possible in any given moment. We are multidimensional. And not only that, all these narratives and scripts that we've been force-fed to believe on whatever levels, to question those and to also understand that when we're not stuck, when we're not actually living reactively out of fear of just not being safe, but we're actually actively feeding joy, actively feeding movement, actively feeding that feeling of courage. That is by virtue of the fact that we are embodying that Mother, Father, God conversation that's happening within us and through us. We are creating new timelines. We are actually countering this antichrist frequency just by living in joy, just by living in presence, in gratitude, in breath, in movement. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. Thank you so much for that beautiful explanation. Yeah. So anyway, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today as well, Teya. It was really fun talking to you again, and I really look forward to you coming at the end of the year and teaching again. I'm also going to sign up for some classes myself. So I will put Teya's contact details in the description. So do check it out. And if you're interested in taking some courses with her, do reach out so that she can then let you know on the dates and once she's finalized her travel plans. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nissa. Thank you for just giving a platform as well for all the light workers and
Yes.
doing your
And,
bit.
and if you also, if any of the audience want to just book a session with you, you also do online, right?
Correct.
So
they can find me on lightsofpassage.com. And so very welcome to reach out for anything.
Okay, great. So thank you for joining us today. And it was lovely seeing you again and talking to you. And Yeah, thank you. See you
Thank
soon.
you too, sweetheart. It was
Okay.
lovely to connect, and I'll catch you soon.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye bye. Bye.